Welcome to WikiWaves, where we dive into the fascinating world of history. Today, we'll explore 5 incredible moments that shaped our modern era and ancient civilizations. First, let's talk about how a computer turned on its head in 1997, defeating the world champion Kasparov with an impressive 6-game win against Deep Blue. Then, we move to today's political landscape, where Gordon Brown stepped down as PM after failing to strike a coalition deal with the Liberal Democrats. Next, David Cameron took office as Prime Minister, marking the formation of Britain's first coalition government since World War II. We also see HMS Beagle launched in 1820, carrying Darwin on his historic voyage across the ocean. And finally, we look back at an ancient print from Tang-dynasty China that made it the world's oldest dated book. Let me know your thoughts. It was 1997, and the world had just finished its grandest chess tournament of the year. Deep Blue, that brilliant computer from Carnegie Mellon University, finally cracked the code against Garry Kasparov, the reigning champion. The match took place in New York City on a crisp May afternoon when the two giants met for the first time under standard tournament conditions. Deep Blue had already won 6 games before this showdown, proving it could beat even the most arrogant of human players. But here was the real moment. Kasparov tried to use an esoteric opening called the Mises opening to challenge the engine's book-based evaluation. The computer didn't know that perpetual check meant a draw, so Deep Blue won by 3 2/2 after only 45 moves. It was a historic first where a world champion lost to a machine under normal rules. That victory sparked a whole new era of artificial intelligence, inspiring books and films like Game Over, Kasparov and the Machine. The team at Carnegie Mellon even received a massive $100,000 award for their incredible achievement. The shift from analyzing complex algorithms in 1997 to examining how political parties navigate electoral landscapes in 2010 marks a pivotal change in perspective, as we now move beyond technical precision to explore the human dynamics that shape democratic outcomes. The sky was gray and heavy over Buckingham Palace on that crisp morning of May 10th. When Gordon Brown stepped down as leader of the Labour Party. He had been a man who loved to talk, but he also knew how to manage a room like a courtroom or a boardroom where the rules were strict. When David Cameron tried to form a government with the Liberal Democrats, they couldn't agree on anything for weeks. The technical requirement was high. 326 seats in Parliament needed to be held by one party, and Labour only had 258. It felt like a rigged game that nobody could win against the odds. Brown knew he had to step down from leadership roles rather than fight another day. He told everyone at Downing Street that he would resign as Prime Minister on May 11th because he couldn't strike a deal with the Liberals. The Conservatives, led by Cameron, were happy enough to form a coalition government immediately after he left the chairmanship of Labour. Nick Clegg stepped up quickly as Deputy Prime Minister to help manage the new administration, and they signed off on an agreement that promised economic stability and banking reform. But there was a Scottish National Party involved in this drama, and it wasn't just about politics. It was about who would actually lead the country when things got tough later. The SNP wanted to join, but Labour officials said because of fundamental differences between their parties. A 1,000-strong crowd gathered outside a Conservative meeting on May 8th to demand electoral reform, and David Laws even endorsed Clegg's strategy for negotiations. It was a tense moment where the public demanded change, while the government tried to keep things running smoothly. Labour then launched a leadership election on May 18th, hoping to find a new leader who could handle this difficult transition. Ed Miliband was elected at their annual conference in September 2010, but he wasn't the first one to take office after a prime minister resigned. The final decision rested with the new PM, who was appointed by the Queen upon his resignation. It was a complex political journey that tested every level of government and public opinion during a time when the world was struggling with recession and global instability. As we move from the political landscape of 2010, David Cameron's leadership marked a pivotal turning point in UK history that would shape the nation for decades to come. Imagine standing on the edge of a bustling city square where the air smells like old paper and rain on hot asphalt. It's 2010, and you're watching history unfold right before your eyes as David Cameron steps onto the stage to lead the nation. You know exactly what this moment means for the future. It marks the birth of a new era in British politics, where the Conservatives and Liberals finally agreed to work together. The atmosphere was electric, charged with hope that would turn into turbulence within weeks. The previous government had dissolved, leaving the country in a state of confusion as the political landscape shifted dramatically. Cameron didn't just take office. He brought a vision that promised social change while navigating a complex world full of shifting alliances. He began his tenure by addressing the heart of the issue at hand, the welfare system. You can almost hear the voice of reformers speaking from a podium, promising to fix things for everyone without breaking the rules. But as the day turned into night, you saw the consequences of those promises come with unexpected costs that would ripple through society later on. The journey wasn't smooth sailing. It was filled with moments of tension and controversy. You remember the chaotic negotiations between the two major parties, where every vote mattered to keep things moving forward. The government made bold decisions about equality and health care, but they also faced fierce opposition from those who saw them as a betrayal of tradition. By June 2016, you could see the full picture emerging on the world stage. A pivotal referendum had just happened in Britain, and the vote to leave Europe was decided with a score that felt both hopeful and deeply unsettling. Cameron's administration tried to manage this crisis by pushing for a peaceful exit while simultaneously trying to solve the domestic problems that were causing so much unrest. Yet, despite their efforts, the political instability remained high. The government fell short of achieving stability quickly, leading to the resignation of Theresa May just as things began to unravel again. You can feel the weight of that final decision hanging over the nation like a heavy cloud, signaling a new chapter in British history. From the political upheaval of 2010 to the biological revolution of 1820, time moves forward through history in a way that often demands we pause and reconsider our own understanding of progress. Imagine stepping out of a foggy dockyard on a crisp January morning in 1820. The air was thick with steam and anticipation as the HMS Beagle took shape at Woolwich Dockyard, ready to do its thing for a lifetime. It wasn't just another ship. It was a living vessel carrying a young man named Charles Darwin, who had been brought on board by his mother's side of the family. The keel was laid in June 1818, and construction drawings were issued back in February 1817, marking the beginning of a story that would unfold across the Atlantic waters for decades to come. Between July and August 1817, the ship underwent some significant changes, adjusting its bulwark height from 6 inches at the stem down to 4 inches at the stern as it sailed away from Plymouth. Captain Pringle Stokes was appointed in September 1825 to survey Patagonia and Tierra del Fuego under Australian Captain Philip Parker King, a role that would lead him through some of the most dangerous regions on Earth. He docked at Woolwich on September 27, 1825, leaving behind a legacy of exploration that would define his career. On May 22, 1826, the Beagle departed Plymouth for a hydrographic survey with HMS Adventure, setting sail into open ocean where it would meet its fate in the Barbara Channel. In March 1827, it encountered survivors of the sealer Prince of Saxe-Coburg in the Barbara Channel and sent 2 launches to rescue them, though Stokes himself fell into a depression at Port Famine on Magellan Strait before shooting himself on August 2, 1828. Captain Robert Fitzroy proved capable and took charge of the ship after Stokes' death. He named Port Darwin on the coast of Australia to honor Charles Darwin, who had been brought as a passenger during his scientific work. In June 1837, Beagle was commissioned to survey Australia under Commander John Clements Wickham with Assistant Surveyor John Lort Stokes, reaching the Swan River in November 1837 and surveying the coast of Western Australia. Fitzroy sought a naturalist for his geology work. Charles Darwin joined as a self-financing passenger, influenced by Lavater's physiognomy and becoming the subject of the famous diary journal, The Voyage of the Beagle. The ship served as a static Coast Guard watch vessel in Essex River until 1845, then transferred to HM Customs and Excise for smuggling control on the Thames estuary. In 1851, it was sold to Messrs. Murray and Traynor. They were prosecuted for alleged pollution of the river, but acquitted. Investigations began in 2000 by Robert Prescott of St. Andrews University, identifying a vessel matching Beagle's size on the River Roach in Essex. Site investigations found remains of substantial material and an anchor from 1841, suggesting the ship was moored near Paglesham Reach. The ship is notable for carrying Darwin around the world during his scientific work and playing a role in the identification of the Beagle Channel and named places such as Palmerston, Darwin. The shift from the scientific revolution of 19th-century Europe to the imperial rise of the Tang-dynasty marks a dramatic pivot in human history, as we now move from understanding the origins of life on Earth to exploring the grandeur and complexity of ancient Chinese power structures. It was a quiet morning in Chang'an, where the sun dipped low over the golden streets of the capital, casting long shadows across the courtyards. For centuries, scholars had whispered that this place held secrets buried deep within history, waiting to be discovered by someone brave enough to dig through sand and dust. But today, something magical happened on a specific day in May 8668. A scroll was pulled from a dusty pile of paper, and it turned out to be the Diamond Sutra. It wasn't just any book. It was the world's oldest dated printed edition, handed down with such reverence that even the monks inside felt their hearts beat faster than before. The story begins in a humble monastery near Sravasti, where Subhuti, a senior monk, walked daily to pray and meditate. He found himself writing down his thoughts on paper for the first time, but he didn't know what was happening next. Suddenly, a large sheet of parchment appeared from the air, bearing the words of the Buddha's perfect wisdom. It wasn't just an idea. It was a physical object that had been made with such care and intent that it felt like a gift from the divine itself. This moment is significant because it marks the birth of what we now call printing. Before this day, knowledge traveled by word or ink on paper, but there were no machines to bring books to life. The Tang Dynasty came along with them, bringing the technology and the people who understood the value of these new media. It was a time when cosmopolitan culture began to flourish, blending ideas from different cultures into one unified world. The text itself is filled with profound teachings about emptiness and non-self, urging listeners to let go of rigid concepts like self or person. Scholars throughout history have debated whether this approach led to nihilism or offered a path toward true enlightenment. Yet, for the people of Tang China, it became a daily practice, a way to navigate life without getting stuck in fixed notions about reality itself. As the sun set over the city, the monks returned to their duties, but they carried with them an ancient artifact that would continue to inspire generations. It wasn't just a book. It was a bridge between the past and the future, proving that even in times of chaos, there were ways to find peace within the chaos itself.